Incredible life-changing rescue. Single black dad exposes hidden truths that leave CEO speechless. Marcus always believed his children, Malik and Aisha, were his greatest gifts. Their laughter echoed through their small, humble apartment, filling it with warmth and light, even when the world outside felt heavy with uncertainty. Every evening, he'd tuck them in, whispering, "Integrity and tenacity make us unstoppable. Remember that." As the sun dipped below the skyline, it cast a golden glow on their tight-knit urban neighborhood, once vibrant, now struggling, but still alive with history and spirit. Now, summer beckoned, the air thick with both promise and tension. A man in a crisp suit entered their world, oozing an air of entitlement, his pristine designer attire stark against the worn sidewalks. He had grand plans for the neighborhood, plans that threatened to wipe out the cherished grocery store Marcus's father built with love and dedication. That store was a sanctuary for families like theirs, where laughter, camaraderie, and community blossomed in every aisle. Suddenly, the joy felt fragile as the whispers of gentrification rolled through streets that were filled with memories. But Marcus wasn't going to let his world crumble. Driven by his love for Malik and Aisha, he rallied the families in their community, neighborhood teachers, and even war veterans. They gathered, fueled by the shared hope of keeping their homes safe. The evenings became a chorus of voices joined in laughter, brainstorming ideas to confront the looming threat. Moments of deep connection flourished as they shared stories of triumph and heartache, echoes of their shared history. Just as they prepared for a protest, life unfolded an unexpected twist. The sky turned darker with dread when Marcus discovered Malik and Aisha were missing. Panic gripped him, that hollow ache of fear opened wide. He battled the sinking feeling that his fight for their home might have put them in danger. The streets echoed with a deepening silence, sparking frantic shouts for help. Neighbors joined the desperate search, transforming worry into an unwavering force of community spirit. "Keep looking," someone shouted, eyes wide with concern. Faces once bright with laughter now wore tracks of fear, but every moment of anxiety deepened their resolve. Marcus felt the weight of guilt on his chest. Should he have focused on their safety rather than fighting for a grocery? As time slipped away, each heart was weighed heavier with the unknown. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When the sun finally dipped down and cast long shadows, the search transformed into a meeting. They packed into a small community center, voices trembling with fear and determination. Marcus stood up, heart racing, aware of the eyes weighing on him. Then came the town hall meeting, a showdown against the CEO. As his heart pounded, Marcus confronted the poised outsider, revealing shocking truths about the man's own ties to their beloved neighborhood, a past that brimmed with broken promises and lost dreams. The room fell silent, holding the weight of their shared history, but would it be enough to stop the crushing tide of change? As the air thickened with tension, they all felt it, a moment that could shatter or heal, a moment that hinged on Marcus's next words. The silence was deafening. Marcus took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage he had. He could feel the weight of his community resting on his shoulders. The CEO regarded him with a look that mixed disdain with curiosity, as if seeing Marcus for the first time. For so long, he had been just a single dad, navigating through his life with love and determination. Now, he was the voice of an entire neighborhood. "Your plans," he began, his voice steady, "aren't just numbers on paper. They represent lives. They represent the fabric of our community. Families depend on that grocery store. My father built it for us, not for you to come in and tear down." A murmur spread through the crowd. Marcus could feel their energy shifting, filling him with newfound strength. "Do you even know what it's like to walk these streets?" To feel the pride of knowing your neighbor. To share meals at the same table with them. He pointed around the room, his movement drawing attention to the faces of those who knew sacrifice and struggle. This is not just a byline in your quarterly earnings report. These are our home, our histories. The CEO's composure began to crack. For the first time, there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Marcus pressed on, seeing the doubt blossom. You see dollar signs, but we see dreams. Dreams that are being crushed with every plan you lay out. In the back of the room, a woman named Clara stood up, her voice piercing through. Yes, right. My daughter graduated from that same grocery store's youth program. We built a life around the community that you want to erase. Think of what you're taking from us. The room erupted in voices, each story lending weight to Marcus's resolve. Each person had their own reason to fight, and Marcus was just getting started. He turned back to the CEO. If you really knew what this place means, you would understand that our fight is not just for a store, but for a future where our children can thrive and hold on to their heritage. The tension electrified the air, rising to a fever pitch. The CEO stumbled backwards, his facade of calm cracking. For the first time, he seemed unable to dictate the conversation. Side glances exchanged in the room transformed into nods of agreement. Each person began sharing their own stories, slowly at first words of love, grief, and hope poured out, wrapping around the CEO like a thick fog. Then came the moment that was almost a catalyst. Aisha appeared at the door, eyes wide with confusion and fright. Marcus's heart spasmed with relief. She darted to him, wrapping her arms around his waist, her warmth grounding him as Malik followed closely behind, a look of innocence in his wide eyes. The crowd hushed, all eyes turning to the father and his children, the reason for his fight embodied in their small forms. Dad, Aisha whispered, we were scared. Their presence injected a fresh wave of strength into him as he crouched down, holding their faces in his hands. I'm so sorry you were frightened. But this is our home, and we're fighting to keep it. He stood again, locking eyes with the CEO, who began to falter under the weight of the community's emotional pull. You see their faces? The laughter we share, the tears we cry, you can't just erase us like we don't matter. In that moment, the room held its breath, a fragile pause brimming with unsaid possibilities. Would any of this change the CEO's mind? Could he be swayed by the very thing that made the neighborhood alive? As the CEO opened his mouth to respond, a familiar sound echoed outside, a siren, sharp and intruding. A chill swept through the room. What more trouble was brewing out there? Would their fight come with even greater stakes than they imagined? The tension thickened once again as Marcus felt the stakes rise, aware that the coming moments could determine the future not just for him and his kids but for everyone in their community. Marcus felt his heart race as the siren's wail echoed near, reverberating through the room like a death knell. The urgency of the sound dug into him, amplifying the gravity of their situation. Just as he was starting to find his voice, now it seemed as though the world was shifting underfoot. Hushed whispers rippled amongst the crowd. People exchanged worried glances, uncertainty filling the air. What is happening outside? Someone murmured, looking towards the windows as if the answer would materialize from the gathering gloom. Aisha clung to Marcus tighter, sensing the tension. Malik mirrored his sister's unease, his wide, innocent eyes scanning the faces of familiar neighbors, now full of worry. Dad, what if it's a raid? Aisha's voice trembled, breaking through the murmur of the assembly. Marcus tightened his grip around them as his mind raced. A raid? The possibility sent a chill down his spine, stirring dormant fears long buried under layers of hope and resilience. Was it possible that their fight wasn't just about the grocery store? Was it tied to something darker? The CEO fidgeted restlessly, still trapped in the emotional maelstrom he'd been swept into. Whatever power he had built up was dwindling fast, and it was unclear how he would react next. Would the siren's song rattle him enough to reconsider? Or would it push him further into his agenda? Let us stay calm, Marcus urged his community, lifting his voice, steady and firm. Whatever it is, we're all together. We won't let fear divide us. As if almost sensing the rallying cry in his voice, some community members began to raise their hands, one by one, bowing their heads together. It was a gesture of unity, breathing strength into the room, even as the sirens blared in the background. Listen, Marcus continued, they can threaten us all they want. But this neighborhood is built on strength. We've faced down adversity before. We have each other. That's what matters. From behind the crowd, Clara stood tall, her voice rising above the low murmurs. Yes. We've fought through storms before. Remember the roof collapse on Maple Street? We came together. We rebuilt. We're stronger than fear. Encouragement bubbled among them, igniting a fire that kindled hope. Even the CEO, who had been so wrapped in his corporate armor, couldn't avoid the tangible shift in the air. Marcus watched as the man's face shifted again, the flicker of his conviction wavering, seemingly caught off guard by the spirit of unity flourishing in the unsought cocktail of fear and resilience. Then, without warning, the door to the room burst open. A police officer stepped in, the badge on his chest gleaming under the fluorescent lights, cutting through the fog of anxiety. His serious demeanor sent a collective gasp through the gathering. Marcus Howard? He called, eyes scanning the room. A rush of apprehension settled on Marcus's shoulders. Yes, officer, that's me, he replied, stepping forward while holding his children's hands. The officer's expression remained grim. We need to talk regarding some events unfolding outside. It's important. The room fell silent, every set of eyes on Marcus. In that moment, he was acutely aware of the weight resting heavily on him once more. He was not just fighting for a grocery store anymore, he might be stepping into a fire he couldn't control. Tell us it's not about our community, Aisha whispered, her voice quiet yet raw, pulling on the strings of his heart. Whatever it is, we're in this together, he replied, his voice trembling slightly now, realizing that truth often uncovers deeper fears. As he stepped toward the officer, concern and determination intertwined in his chest. He had opened a door to a fight he didn't fully understand, and the stakes had risen beyond what any of them anticipated. But would it reveal an ally in the face of adversity or drag them into something far worse? Marcus approached the officer with caution. Each step felt heavy with uncertainty, dragging him deeper into a web he hadn't chosen to enter. The officer's intense gaze met his, and within it, Marcus sensed a mix of urgency and something else. Was that sympathy? Sir, we've received reports of an armed confrontation not far from here, the officer continued, his voice steady but taut. We think it's best for your community to remain indoors until we assess the situation. Marcus could feel the air grow thicker, his heart slamming against his ribcage. Armed confrontation? He echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. A glance at Aisha and Malik revealed their wide, terrified eyes. Sir, I need to ensure your family is kept safe, the officer stated, taking a half-step closer. The gathering buzzed with a mix of fear and confusion. What do we do? Clara's voice sliced through the tension, and many turned to Marcus, their expressions pleading for leadership. Stay close together, he called out. We'll hold tight until we know more. His mind whirled, the horror of their situation mocking the resolve he had momentarily built. Once, they were just fighting to keep the store open, and now it felt as if their very lives were at stake. Dad, what about everyone else? Aisha whispered, her fingers trembling in his grasp. I don't know, sweetheart, but we'll be okay. Marcus felt the weight of the world on him as he tried to sound hopeful, even as fear gnawed at his insides. The officer scoped the room. I need you to stay here. Don't move. I have to check on other parts of the neighborhood. He turned, his uniform a stark contrast to the women and men in the room, all painted with raw anxiety. As the doubts tightened like a noose, Clara stepped forward again, her voice fierce and unwavering. We have to stand guard. If we stay together, they can't tear us apart. Her passion ignited the crowd, and nods of agreement began to ripple like a wave. Clara's right, Marcus joined in, his heart swelling at the resilience of his community. We need look out for each other. Keep an eye on the windows. If we hear anything, we will respond as one. Around him, a sense of purpose sparked, building a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness. Aisha and Malik found comfort in their parents' resolve, their grip tightening around his hands. But as minutes turned into eternity, the whispers inside the room grew louder than the sirens. What are they fighting for? Someone whispered. Is it just about the store? The doubt threaded through the crowd, heartbeats quickening as uncertainty gnawed at their once stalwart unity. Do we even know who the them is? Marcus asked the room, his mind racing. Who engineered this fear? What unwelcome truth lingered behind every siren? Heads shook, eyes darted around, and Marcus felt the tension shift. The officer was out there. But were they alone in this struggle? Malik, sensing the change in Marcus's demeanor, tugged on his sleeve. Dad, are we safe? Marcus knelt down to face him, feeling the weight of his son's gaze. We're safe as long as we have each other. Always remember that. But as he said it, doubt crept back in. Could family and community truly shield them from something they might not see coming? Then came a sound. A loud commotion erupted outside, yells, a crash, followed by more sirens blaring. The community tensed collectively, breaths held, as heads turned toward the door like sunflowers drawn to light. What is happening? Aisha said, her voice shaky, clinging to her father. Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. No longer could he protect them from terror. They were teetering on the edge of a storm, a reckoning about to unfold. Would they be ready for what was on the other side? He glanced back at the officer who had stepped outside, fear etched in the lines of his face. That moment associated with so many unknowns sparked an urgency within him. He had to act. Where is the CEO? Marcus suddenly realized, scanning the room. He needs to answer for this too. But would their urgency lead to the answers they sought, or plunge them deeper into chaos? The noise outside escalated into chaos, each sound pulling at the frayed edges of Marcus's resolve. People were shouting now, a blend of fear and anger rippling through the crowd like a wildfire. He felt Aisha's grip tighten around his hand, a tangible reminder of everything he was fighting for. Stay close, he murmured, though he could hardly find his own strength. He turned back to the group, the faces staring up at him mirroring the fear twisting inside him. We need to stay calm. Keep your voices down. Malik's eyes were round, the innocence of childhood at war with the harsh reality surrounding them. What are they doing out there, Dad? He asked, his small voice trembling. I don't know, buddy, but we're safe in here. Just breathe, Marcus urged, even as his own heart raced. He glanced towards the windows, every creak of the building amplifying their anxiety. The officer's voice, waiting outside, was raised but indecipherable. Marcus stepped toward the door, hope driving him forward despite the panic bubbling within. What more could he learn? He had to know. No, he thought, shaking his head. He couldn't leave the kids. Staying put meant protecting his family, but this sense of unrest was beginning to feel unbearable. Let me through. Clara yelled, pushing past. We need to know what is happening. The fire in her voice ignited something in Marcus. Clara, wait. He reached for her but she was already at the door, and before he could stop her, she swung it open. The street beyond was ablaze with confusion. People were gathering, faces distorted with worry. The officer held a baton up, trying to maintain some semblance of order, but chaos danced around him, enveloping everyone in a suffocating grasp. I'm sorry, but you need to go back inside, he warned, his voice strained as he looked at Clara. But this was no ordinary confrontation. Marcus knew it by the uncertainty flashing in the officer's eyes. What's out there? Clara pressed, stepping out further, heart pounding in time with the escalating ruckus. With an exaggerated slow motion, she peered into the fray. Marcus followed closely, his gut twisting. As bodies shifted, a figure emerged, a familiar face. It was Mr. Thompson, the store CEO, appearing out of nowhere, hands raised and panic etched on his features. The sight was shocking. "What are you doing here?" Marcus blurted. The questions burned inside him. He fought the urge to stomp toward Thompson, to demand answers, to shout for justice, for clarity amidst the chaos. "Marcus. We need to." Thompson stumbled over his words, his eyes darting around. He was clearly agitated, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Need to what?" "Explain yourself." Marcus hissed, the edge of anger sharpening his voice. "In this moment, I'm just a scapegoat," Thompson exclaimed, desperation threading through his words. "I didn't know." "I wasn't," he asked. "It just happened." Confusion caught like wildfire in Marcus's mind. Could this be true? Was the man who made their lives miserable also swept away in his own storm? Before he could respond, a low rumble echoed through the streets. The ground seemed to vibrate beneath them. The people in the crowd fell silent, breaths caught in their throats. "Back inside. Everyone back inside." The officer raised his baton again, the panic palpable now. "Run!" someone yelled, breaking the momentary silence. The crowd surged backward toward the building, a mass of panic and urgency. Marcus grabbed Aisha and Malik tightly, pulling them back inside as people flooded in around him. He felt Clara's hand slip back into his, the bond grounding him. "Stay close," he yelled, feeling the gravity of their gathering panic mount. As they scrambled inside, Marcus's mind raced with questions. If the CEO had been swept away in the chaos, then what truth remained beneath the surface of this unfolding horror? What was really happening out there, and why had it all turned into this? "Dad, what is going on?" Malik asked, his voice shaky, eyes wide with fear. The weight of responsibility settled like a stone in Marcus's chest. "I don't know, son, but I promise we'll figure it out together." He nodded assuringly, even as the commotion surged outside. But the moment didn't end there. An unexpected revelation loomed, a hidden layer beneath chaos that could change everything for his community. "Marcus!" Clara shouted, urgency creeping back into her voice. "What if it's worse than we think?" He swallowed thickly, realizing they were standing on the precipice of something monumental, teetering between chaos and clarity. In a world where truth was buried beneath lies, would they uncover the answers they so desperately needed, or would the struggle pull them all apart? With curiosity and fear tangled together, he leaned in closer to catch Thompson's eye, the unspoken words hanging in the air between them all. What lay within him that might shed light on their dark horizon? Marcus's heart raced as he watched the crowd surge and ebb like a tide, pushing him deeper into the safety of the building with every pulse of panic. He felt the warmth of Aisha's small hand in his, her body pressed close to his side. He could swear he heard her soft whisper of fear, a sound that echoed louder than the chaos outside. "Stay strong," he whispered back, his voice shaking slightly. But deep down, any confidence he tried to project crumbled as uncertainty clawed at him. Clara was still gripping Thompson's arm, seeking answers that eluded them all. "Thompson, you have to tell us the truth," Clara insisted, her eyes wide, searching his face for something solid to hold on to. "Look, I'm not your enemy." Thompson shot back, his voice rising above the din. "I came out here to find help. To see what's happening and to make sure people get answers." The panic in his voice betrayed him. The officer continued to shout orders from the street, his voice battling against the chorus of fearful cries. People rushed back inside the building, a wave of desperation washing over Marcus and the others. He noticed an elderly woman stumbling, panic etched across her face. Without thinking, he turned towards her and reached out, offering her support with an outstretched hand. "Come on, you're okay. We're all safe inside," he reassured her, but it scared him how weak that sounded in the face of rising chaos. The old woman nodded and grabbed his hand, but as he pulled her towards safety, his gaze fell back on Thompson. This man, so often in his way, was now standing at the center of a storm, seemingly just as lost as everyone else. Marcus's thoughts ran wild. Could there be a shared humanity in this chaos? Why should we trust you? Marcus shouted, interrupting Clara's desperate questioning. You've been part of the problem. Thompson flinched at the accusation but met Marcus's eyes with a sudden intensity, a flicker of something vulnerable in his expression. Because that's exactly what I'm trying to stop, he replied, dropping his voice to a near whisper, yet firm. Things are unraveling, and I can't let it happen without doing something. There are deeper forces at play. What do you mean? Clara interjected, stepping forward once more, urging Thompson to elaborate, her face a mask of determination. There's a reason this chaos erupted today, he began, breathing heavily as if forcing the words from a reluctant throat. It's about the store, the community, there are plans that I didn't agree to and things people don't know. They're trying to use fear to get control. The crowd around them shifted uneasily, whispers blooming as Marcus sensed their collective heartbeat echoing his own, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Control? Aisha asked, her voice a tremor in the sea of uncertainty. She squeezed Marcus's hand tighter. Marcus's mind was a whirlpool of thoughts. Fear had always been a tool used against them, but if what Thompson claimed was true, then would this chaos actually create an opportunity for something better? Are you telling the truth, Thompson? Marcus pressed, raw power simmering in his voice. Do you want to help? Or is this just another game? I'm done with games. I'm trying to warn you all of what's coming. Thompson's desperation hung in the air, filled with a weight that could crush the very walls around them. The tension in the room thickened, and the eyes of his friends bored into Marcus, almost begging him to decipher the man before them. Would Marcus make the leap of faith, or reserve judgment until the danger had passed? Outside, a slow murmur of agitation rose again, like a drumbeat growing louder, wrapping them in a moment suspended in time. He felt the gravity of their shared fears and unvoiced hopes. The question loomed above them like a storm cloud, ready to unleash. Marcus, what are we going to do? Aisha's voice drew him back that he took a deep breath, glancing from Clara to Thompson to the many faces waiting for a leader to emerge from the shadows. We look for the truth, he said finally. Together, we face whatever this is. As the words left his mouth, a siren blared through the distance, slicing through the air like a knife, cutting sharply into their resolve. What were they really facing? And how far would they have to go to uncover what lay beneath all the fear? Get ready, Marcus shouted, his heart a drum in his chest. This is only the beginning. The siren's wail echoed, piercing through the clamor of panic and fear. To Marcus, it sounded like a warning bell, but it also breathed a strange kind of urgency into the gathering. People shifted uneasily, casting glances toward the exits, each noise from the street heightening their anxiety. Stay here, he commanded, trying to project strength, although doubt gnawed at his insides. We'll find out what's happening. We can't just cower in here. Clara and Aisha nodded, but his voice shook. The last thing he wanted was to fracture the fragile hope that had begun to coil itself around them like a lifeline. Thompson stepped closer, his brow furrowed. There is something going on outside that you all need to understand. People have a right to know. Then help us understand, Clara urged, folding her arms tightly. What are we up against? Powerful interests, Thompson said, glancing around as if the walls themselves had ears. There are factions in play, people willing to ignite chaos to further their own agendas. The truth is out there, but it's buried beneath layers of lies. How do you know this? Where's your proof? Marcus felt hot anger surge within him as he confronted Thompson. Part of him still viewed the man as the enemy, but this situation forced him to confront his biases. With an exasperated sigh, Thompson turned his back for a moment, facing the wall. Because I've seen it, he said quietly. I've seen the plans, the documents. This isn't just about fear on the streets. This is about control of our community, our lives. His words hung in the air, smothering all other sounds. The gravity of the moment brushed against them like a cold wind. Aisha squeezed Marcus's hand tightly, the warmth grounding him in the swirl of chaos around them. "But we won't let them in. Not again." Clara's voice lifted defiantly, embodying the strength she carried despite the fear they all felt. Marcus nodded, rallying the strength he hoped he could muster. "We'll find out what they're hiding." A galvanizing thrill shot through him. Maybe they had the power to peel back the layers if they worked together. Just then, the towering glass doors trembled as someone burst through, breathless and wide-eyed. A young man, disheveled with a wild look, dashed toward them. "You have to listen to me," he yelled, his voice drowned in fear. "They're coming and they're not here to help." Marcus's heart raced. "Who is coming? What do you mean?" "They're going to gas the area. They want to control the crowd and send everyone home," the man gasped, looking over his shoulder as if demons chased after him. "You have to warn people." The impact of his words crashed over Marcus like a tidal wave, leaving him breathless. These weren't just hostile intentions, they were life or death. His mind scrambled through the implications. "We need to act now," he said firmly. "We can't let fear win. We have to gather everyone, warn them, and take a stand." With a nod from Clara and a squeeze from Aisha, they moved as a unit. The energy shifted from fear to a fragile but vibrant resolve, their breaths intertwined as they prepared to face whatever darkness lay ahead. As they ventured towards the door, the sirens grew louder, now accompanied by the distant rumble of heavy machinery. Marcus's heart drummed a frantic beat, caught in the swell of urgency. It was one thing to stand together in uncertainty, but facing a real threat required every ounce of bravery they could muster. "Are you all ready?" he called out, stopping to meet the eyes of each person with fierce determination. "We can do this together." Just as they all took a collective breath, the deep hum of engines escalated into a chaotic roar outside. A sense of impending dread coiled in Marcus's stomach, intensifying into something more, a feeling that change was not just possible, it was imminent. What lay beyond those glass doors? And would they have the strength to confront it head-on? With one final glance exchanged, they opened the door, stepping into the uncertain future that awaited them. The world outside the glass doors exploded into a scene of chaos. Shouts echoed off the walls, mingling with the mechanical noises that reverberated in the air. Marcus stepped into an atmosphere thick with tension, his heart racing as he instinctively reached for Aisha's hand. Clara was beside him, her face a mixture of determination and fear, but there was no turning back now. "Stay close," he shouted over the noise, trying to cut through the panic. "We need to get to the square and warn as many people as we can." They pushed into the throng, weaving around clusters of frightened people. The streets were cluttered with debris, abandoned bags, and overturned chairs from nearby cafes. In the distance, squad cars lined the block, their lights swirling ominously like a beacon of impending doom. "What do we do if we run into them?" Clara asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Redirect the crowd. Just keep shouting the message," Marcus replied, trying to instill confidence into their mission. He vividly pictured families and individuals who would be caught unaware if they didn't act fast. As they rounded a corner, the smell hit them first, a sickness in the air that made Marcus's stomach twist. He remembered the man's words about the gas and his heart sank further. "It's happening," he whispered, gripping Aisha's hand tighter. Clara noticed the growing fear on his face. "We can handle this. We're a team." Her optimism was infectious, reigniting Marcus's resolve. He drew in a deep breath and pushed forward, raising his voice above the din. "People, listen up. They might gas the area. If you can, move towards the park," he shouted, waving his arms to grab attention. A few faces turned, eyes wide with shock, but the majority were too consumed with their own fear to notice. Then he saw it, a group of corporate-looking individuals advancing ahead, dressed in crisp suits, flanked by stern-faced officers. This was at the source of the chaos. They couldn't let them reach the crowd. They're trying to control everyone. Marcus yelled louder, adrenaline surging. Do not let fear take over. We can push back. Aisha stepped beside him, her voice shaking but steady. Don't let them isolate you. We need to stand together. Slowly, some people around them began to pay attention, taking cues from their willingness to fight back. They've planned this, but we can expose them. Clara shouted, her spirit shining through the panic. Marcus was filled with a fierce sense of purpose. He had no idea where the bravery was coming from, but it fueled him. The crowd began to move, some people following them, trusting the urgency they projected, but just then, a deep, resonant voice broke through the chaos. The order has been made. Everyone, return to your homes now. One of the suited men stepped forward, a calm that felt wrong in the midst of turmoil. His eyes scanned the crowd, and Marcus could feel the chill radiating from him. They were trying to seed further fear. No one seemed to notice how the man's calm contrasted sharply with the chaos around, which made Marcus's skin crawl. It's now or never. He called out, pivoting to face the crowd. We're stronger together. Don't let them silence you. A wave of chatter rippled through the throng. People started to stand taller, solidifying their stance against the encroaching forces. They took slow steps forward, empowered by Marcus's rallying cry. Suddenly, a burst of gas shot from a canister thrown into the middle of the street, dispersing into the air with a thick fog that sank low. Panic erupted anew, voices rising in fear, echoing desperation. Marcus felt the cold fear gripping his heart again. No, he yelled, adrenaline exploding in his veins. He knew the stakes had just risen, and they were in a race against time. Would they succumb to the gas or fight back? As everyone began to choke on the acrid air, a new wave of fear pulsed through him. But even in the turmoil, he saw something else, a flicker of resilience rising in those around him. Would they all stand together as one? With the gas creeping closer, Marcus had to think. Fast. A plan needed to take shape. We need to find shelter, he shouted, drawing attention to a nearby building. Follow me. We can regroup inside. But as he turned, eyes scanning the crowd, he caught a fleeting glance of something moving, something that whispered of danger. Who else was here, shrouded in the very chaos they tried to escape? What awaited them within the shadows of the building? And could they really reinforce their strength before it was too late? Marcus sprinted toward the building, the air thick with panic and the choking stench of gas. Aisha was close behind him, her breath hitching as they dodged the frantic movements of the crowd. Clara followed, shouting encouragement, her voice like an anchor in the storm. Keep moving. Marcus urged, pushing through the glass doors into the building's lobby. Inside, the dimly lit space seemed almost peaceful compared to the chaos outside. For a moment, they stood together, catching their breath. This won't hold them back for long, Clara said, her eyes wide with concern as she peered out through the glass. They'll push through eventually. Not if we can organize ourselves, Marcus replied, urgency sharpening his tone. We need to gather everyone we can. He glanced around, noticing 2 employees from the front desk watching them, fear etched on their faces. Hey! We need help. Can you call others in? We're not safe here for long. The woman behind the desk nodded, hastily picking up the phone, while the man, shaking, joined their group. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had to funnel the energy in the room. Listen up. He called out, his voice steady despite the tremor of adrenaline. We're going to need to barricade the doors and find a way to protect our people. We can't let that gas spread. If we work together, we can create a safe space until we figure out our next move. He glanced at Aisha, who was gathering her courage. We can do this, right? He asked, trying to keep the flicker of doubt from showing. Of course we can, she replied, determination filling her voice. We got this. They sprang into action, using desks and chairs to block the entrance. The atmosphere buzzed, the sense of community ignited under the shared threat. People began to circulate, suggesting ideas, sharing fears, stepping up to take on tasks. An air of resolve replaced the panic outside, as if the building had become a sanctuary rather than a prison. "Is there a way to the roof?" Clara asked, her brow furrowing. "If we can look down on the street, we might see a way out." "I'll check the stairwell," the front desk assistant volunteered, eyes darting nervously as he moved toward the door leading upstairs. As he disappeared up the staircase, Marcus felt a surge of hope. Maybe they could outsmart the chaos. Amid the racket from the street, they began forming a plan. He took stock of the people in the lobby, some still panicked, others stepping into roles they never thought they'd take. Aisha turned to Marcus, her lips parted in a slight grin. "Look at us. We might actually have a chance." Just then, they heard loud footsteps and urgent voices from outside. The corporate figures were approaching, and Marcus's heart sank. The suited man from earlier was leading the charge, anger radiating from him. "Get ready!" Marcus shouted, adrenaline coursing through him again. "This is it." The doors rattled as the crowd pressed back against the makeshift barricade. The sense of threat was palpable, building pressure against them like a gathering storm. They needed a way to reclaim their strength. "On my count," he called, a newfound authority anchoring his voice. "We'll shout back, fight the fear." He started counting, heart hammering as the sound of footsteps grew louder, drowning out everything else in his head. They would either break free from this together, and then he realized something shocking that sent a shiver down his spine. What if their unity was not enough against the forces outside? What if the reality took a darker turn right before them? 3-2. But before he could reach one, the doors burst open, and the suited man stepped in, flanked by guards. "What are you doing?" he yelled, surveying the room with contempt. "You're only making it worse for yourselves." Before Marcus or anyone else could react, the powerful presence loomed over them. The tide of frustration and fear surged back. Could they really hold their ground against the very men who instigated this chaos? Would they find a way to push back, or was this the moment where all hope slipped away? The stakes had never felt higher, and the battle for their lives was only just beginning. Would bravery rise from the ashes of fear, or would it falter under pressure? In that moment of uncertainty, as the suited man's voice echoed through the room, Marcus felt something shift inside him. Thoughts raced through his mind, but one stood out. This was about more than just anger or fear. This was about family, community, and the promise of a future. "Listen!" he shouted, forcing confidence into his voice. "We're not going to be scared anymore. We're fighting for our home, our lives, and each other." The crowd stirred, energy igniting among them. "What do you mean, you're going to make it worse?" Clara echoed, stepping forward. She squared her shoulders, eyes fierce as they locked onto the man. "We won't back down just because you're trying to intimidate us." The suited man hesitated, taken aback by the defiance in their eyes. Marcus could feel it, a thread of strength weaving its way through the crowd, gaining momentum. He stepped in, rallying everyone with every ounce of his determination. "This is our space. We won't let you bulldoze over our dreams, our history." He pointed a finger directly at the CEO, his heart racing with hope, vibrant and strong. "We've built this community on love and laughter. You want to take that? Not without a fight." A murmuring grew among the people in the lobby. A sense of unity washed over them, one that transcended their fear. They weren't just a collection of individuals anymore, they were a force, together, ready to stand up against the tide. Marcus glanced at Aisha, who had taken a step back but remained steadfast, eyes wide with faith in her father's courage. He squeezed her hand tighter. "We're going to face this." With a sudden rush of adrenaline, the crowd surged forward, their voices ringing out, cutting through the oppressive air. "No more!" they cried in unison. "Not today." The CEO's facade cracked, frustration melting into confusion as he surveyed the unwavering faces. Clara shouted once more, and you think we're just going to roll over? Look at us. We're not afraid anymore. As they channeled their energy into a single force, it became clear that they were fighting for something larger than themselves. Every story shared, every laugh echoed, and every tear shed, all of it hung like a banner of hope above them. Just then, the front desk assistant returned, winded and wide-eyed. "We need to get to the roof," he shouted, urgency carving lines in his forehead. "If we can make a plan from above, we can really show them what community means." The crowd murmured, then rallied together, eyes filled with newfound courage. As they moved towards the stairs, Marcus couldn't help but feel the weight lift from his shoulders ever so slightly. They were transforming uncertainty into solidarity. "Let us go," he called, the energy propelling them forward, a living, breathing wave of resolve. Up the staircase, hearts beat as one, every person embracing the mission ahead. When they finally reached the roof, the view revealed a chaotic yet familiar scene below. People were rushing, and the tension was palpable. The machinery of chaos lingered on the streets, but above it all was a sense of clarity. "Gather around," Marcus shouted. "We have to take action now. We'll share our message, blast it out there. We'll show them we're not backing down." Clara leaned forward, determination lacing her voice. "Let us use the megaphone. We need to share what is happening, warn our neighbors, and unite even more of our community." Marcus grabbed the megaphone, hands steady despite the intensity around them. "Hey, everyone down there!" he shouted, voice ringing over the chaos. "This is Marcus Howard. We're not victims. We're fighters, and today we reclaim our space. You are not alone. Make your voices heard. Make your voices heard," echoed Clara as others took up the chant. The energy burned bright like sparks igniting in a darkened night. As their voices mingled, they became a chorus of truth and resilience, shaking the very foundations of fear imposed upon them. Below, the crowd began responding, people lifting their heads as though hearing a call for unity against the storm. In that moment, Marcus felt the warmth of Aisha's hand still in his, and he knew that they had crossed a line, a threshold where fear dissolved, and hope entwined with action. He was reminded of the words he spoke to his children. Together, they would reinforce their bond of love, family, and community. As the rhythm of their chant spread, the men in suits faltered, uncertainty flaring like fire. They had underestimated the strength of those bound by dreams, histories, and humanity. Despite the chaos below, beneath the sirens and the looming shadows of dismay, Marcus felt hope rising amidst the flames of their fight. "Let us take a stand today together," he boomed, his voice echoing into the wind with a determination that resonated with each heart below. "This is just the beginning." As the crowd surged with renewed vigor, a wall of unity emerged. They were ready to face whatever storm lay ahead. They weren't just defending a grocery store or a home, they were building a fortress of resilience, one founded on the belief that together, they could withstand any tempest, and in that spark of transformation, Marcus knew they were unstoppable. Now is the time. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and boost our community. Comment below about your reactions and feelings about this ending, and share this video with at least 5 friends. This is the moment to inspire change. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans know how important support is.